Hey everyone, welcome back, part 2? Let's dive right in, she began, then paused, her voice shifting. Why are you even out here? Shouldn't you be home with your wife or something? Mark felt his chest clench, a vice tightening around his heart. He couldn't stop the tears welling, silent sobs shaking him. It was a gut punch. A stranger showing more concern than the woman who swore forever. Oh, I am so sorry, Emily said softly. Didn't mean to hit a nerve. What happened? Mark hesitated, then gave a clipped version of his marriage implosion. Emily's eyes glistened as they pulled into the emergency room parking lot. She parked, then without a second thought, wrapped her arms around him. Bloodstains blooming on her dress be damned. You poor man, she whispered, tears streaming down her own face. That awful woman doesn't deserve you. Mark blinked, confused. Why are you crying? Because, her voice trembled, those guys were going to kill me, and you jumped in. You risked everything. She pulled back slightly, searching his eyes. I owe you my life, and I swear, no one will ever hurt you like that again. Not like her. Mark shook his head, still reeling. You don't even know me. Didn't know you, she corrected, her gaze intense. But after tonight, I know everything I need to. Mark's heart hammered. Emily's words hung in the cool New York night air. You're my hero, she breathed. My knight in shining armor. I want to take care of you, hold you, fill that emptiness in your heart. Her voice was low, pleading. Please, let me. He studied her face, searching for a flicker of falseness, a hidden agenda. He found nothing but raw honesty, something real in the harsh city glare, something beautiful. Maybe it was the Cassandra fallout still buzzing in his brain, but he heard Miller's voice echoing from years back. Go for it, Corporal. Sergeant, he corrected silently, a ghost of a smirk playing on his lips. Emily had no clue about Miller, about any of it. All right, he murmured, leaning in, his lips finding hers in a gentle kiss. Emily's arms tightened around him, holding him close. You won't regret this, Mark, I promise. They walked into the ER together, a patrol officer waiting inside. A doctor examined them both, cleaning the gash on Mark's cheek as X-rays were rushed. Nothing broken, just a nasty scratch. Emily was miraculously unscathed. Mark gave his statement, the officer listening intently, then lowering his voice. Mark, he said, Emily seems like a good one, but she's been through the ringer. Parents died in a car crash a few years back. Been struggling ever since. No family, barely making ends meet as a waitress. He paused, his eyes meeting Mark's. I know you've got your own battles, but maybe you two could help each other out. Mark was taken aback. Emily hadn't breathed a word of her own troubles, yet she'd been the one comforting him. A warmth bloomed in his chest, something he hadn't felt in an eternity. Maybe it was more than just warmth. Maybe it was the start of something real, something Cassandra had never offered. The officer handed Mark a card. Call me if you need anything. Then, turning to Emily, you can follow me to Mike's place. Gotta pick up my partner anyway. Emily nodded her thanks, and they left the fluorescent hum of the hospital behind. The drive was silent, both lost in thought. Mark's mind was a whirlwind. Sarah's betrayal, his brothers lost overseas, and now Emily. He wasn't a believer in coincidences, but the raw honesty of their connection, the way they'd found each other in the city's chaos, it was undeniable. They'd chosen to be there for each other, amidst their own pain. Reaching Mike's brownstone in Brooklyn, he turned to her. "Come on in, Emily. I don't bite." He managed a weak smile. "And it's a hell of a lot more comfortable than your car." She hesitated. "I don't want to impose." Mark grabbed one of her bags from the back seat. "Don't worry about it. It's no trouble. Got a spare room, and it's definitely safer than sleeping in your car." She sighed, then nodded. "Okay. I guess you're right." Inside, after settling her things in the guest room, Mark invited her to the living room, offering coffee. She accepted, curling up on the worn couch as he prepped the drinks. They shared their stories, the quiet New York sounds filtering in from the street. Mark opened up about Sarah, about the desert, about the emptiness that had become his constant companion. Emily, in turn, unveiled her past. Raised in a working-class family in Queens, scraping by. When her parents died, the bottom dropped out. No safety net, just a mountain of bills and grief. She'd sold everything to cover funeral costs, bounced between temp jobs, finally landing as a waitress at the deli near that alley in the village. Meager pay, barely enough for a cramped studio apartment in the Bronx she shared with a roommate until the roommate moved for a better job upstate. Unable to swing the rent alone, she'd moved in with a guy she was dating, a smooth-talking bartender from a club in Midtown. Within weeks, the charm dissolved, replaced by a volatile temper, then fists. She'd fled in the dead of night, ending up back in her car, parked blocks from her old deli job, trying to save enough for a room somewhere. Anywhere. "Why don't you stay here?" Mark blurted out, the words surprising even himself. "I don't want to take advantage," she replied softly, avoiding his gaze. "I can't pay you anything, and with your divorce, it might not look good." "That's okay," Mark said, his voice firm. "You can use the spare bedroom. Maybe help with some housework if you want. If anyone asks, I'll just say you were homeless, and I let you stay in exchange for helping around the house." Emily considered it, chewing her lip. "That sounds fair." She looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I just hope you don't get tired of me." Mark chuckled, a genuine laugh that hadn't surfaced in months. "No worries. I just hope you can handle looking at my face every day." She reached out, her fingers tracing the jagged scar on his cheek. "I think I can manage," she said, a soft smile gracing her lips. "Actually," she added, her eyes twinkling, "I think it makes you look distinguished, like someone who doesn't take any crap." He laughed, the sound filling the apartment, chasing away the lingering shadows. "Flattery will get you far." As they settled in for the night, Mark mentioned, "Things might get a little crazy around here tomorrow. Sarah and her boyfriend are getting served divorce papers in the morning. Expecting a few phone calls. Got some errands to run, too. Want to come with?" "Sure," she said. "Sounds fun. I'm off for the next couple of days anyway." Mark stood, stretching. Well, I'm exhausted, and my legs starting to ache, heading to bed. Emily hesitated, her gaze searching his. Would it be all right if I slept with you tonight? Her voice was barely a whisper. No expectations. I just need someone to hold me. Mark met her eyes, seeing the vulnerability, the raw need. He nodded. Sure. I promise I'll be good. Later in bed, the city sounds a low hum outside. He instinctively wrapped an arm around her. She rested her head on his shoulder, her arm draping across his chest. The warmth of her body against his, the gentle rise and fall of her breath. It was a comfort he hadn't realized he craved. He thought about how right it felt, Emily beside him, chasing away the cold before drifting off to sleep. Morning broke, the city waking up with its usual chaotic energy. Mark woke to find himself spooning Emily, embarrassment flushing his cheeks. He pulled back slightly. Sorry. Emily smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that lit up the room. Don't apologize. I put your hand there last night. Felt good. She traced her fingers lightly across his chest, a playful glint in her eyes. And this, she added, this felt good too. Mark smirked, leaning in to kiss her. Glad you liked it. After a quick breakfast, the phone rang at 9:20 a.m., shattering the morning calm. What the hell is this about, Mark? Divorce? Sarah's voice screeched through the receiver. I don't want a divorce. And what's this about adultery and abandonment? Mark's voice was ice. I don't care what you want, Sarah. You left, refused to pay bills, drained our accounts, moved in with Eric Swanson, and now you're pregnant by him or someone else. Is that clear enough? I didn't know you were back, Mark, she pleaded, her voice softening, a hint of fake remorse creeping in. Or I would have visited. Mark let out a bitter laugh. That's a load of crap, Sarah. It was all over the news. Even strangers welcomed me home. But you? You were too busy with your boyfriend. You don't understand, Mark. I still love you, Cassandra insisted, her voice breaking, the crocodile tears about to flow. No, you don't. Mark cut her off, his voice hard. If you did, you wouldn't have abandoned me. I had to learn about everything from my parents when they visited me in the hospital. You didn't even send a damn card. But I do love you, she repeated, the desperation rising. Then tell me, Sarah, he challenged. What did you say to Eric about me raising your child? Silence. Thick, damning silence. Oh, right. I don't love him anymore, she finally said, her voice weak. He laughed, a cold, humorless sound. Well, guess what? That's fine, because right now I hate you so much. I wouldn't help you if you were on fire. Another long silence. Then Sarah's voice trembled. Mark, how do you know what I said? He ignored the question. You don't really mean that, do you? She asked, her voice laced with a desperate hope. Just sign the divorce papers, Sarah, Mark said firmly, his voice unwavering. Let's be done with it. It's over. He continued, his voice hardening. And I'm going to take your boyfriend down too. Suddenly, Eric's voice boomed on the line. "Listen up, you jerk. I'm gonna destroy you." Mark scoffed, a wave of disgust washing over him. "I don't think so, idiot. Tougher guys than you have tried, and they're dead now." His voice dropped, becoming low and menacing. "You want to mess with me? I'll beat you so badly, you'll be begging for mercy. You'll feel like you got hit by a freight train. And while we're at it, check those papers. There's a restraining order against both of you. I know all about your little plan to torch my house and trash my truck. You come near me, you'll get a bullet up your rear end. By the time I'm finished with you, you'll be lucky if jail is the worst thing that happens to you." "We'll see about that," Eric sneered, bravado cracking. Sarah came back on the line, her voice pleading. "Mark, please, let's talk this over. We don't need a divorce. Eric and I have a proposal we'd like to discuss with you." Mark cut her off, his voice flat. "If you want to talk to my lawyer." He paused, his tone final. "Here's my suggestion for both of you. You go away and stay the hell out of my life." He hung up, slamming the phone down, his fist connecting with the wall, a dull thud echoing in the apartment. "Damn it!" Emily rushed over, wrapping her arms around him, her touch a soothing balm. "It's okay, Mark," she said gently, her voice calm. "She deserved that, and so did he. Let your lawyer handle it. That's what you're paying him for. Just take a deep breath. Calm down, okay?" Mark exhaled sharply, the anger still simmering beneath the surface. How can she still claim to love me after everything she's done? Emily stepped back slightly, looking at him, her eyes filled with compassion. "I don't know, Mark. She clearly isn't thinking straight. You mentioned you have errands to run. Let's take care of them. Get out of here for a bit, okay?" He took a deep breath, nodding. "All right, you're right." "What do we need to do today?" she asked, her voice bright, trying to lighten the mood. "Need to visit my old boss, drop off my dress blues for cleaning, get the metals mounted, then pick up some parts, tune up the truck." "Let's get started then," she said, her energy infectious. "We've got a lot to do." "First," Mark added, pulling out his cell, "I need to call my lawyer." Emily agreed, and Mark dialed Michael, updating him on the explosive phone call. "Yeah, I thought she was going to faint," Michael chuckled on the other end. "And Swanson sounded like he was about to have a stroke. I'm curious to see what this proposal is. By the way," Michael continued, his tone shifting to business, "I spoke with Lee. He's meeting with the senior partners and the board this afternoon. Make sure your dress blues are ready. We go to court next Friday." "Got it," Mark said. "Thanks, Michael. I'm dropping them off today. I'll call if I hear anything else." They left the apartment, heading out into the bustling New York streets. First stop, the dry cleaner, a small shop tucked away in the West Village, run by an old Korean War vet who knew his craft inside and out. Then a detour to see Mr. Wilson at the garage in Queens, the place Mark had worked before. Everything went sideways. "Hey, boss," Mark said, as he and Emily walked into the cluttered office. Wilson looked up from behind a mountain of paperwork, his brow furrowed. "Hey there, Mark. Damn, I need a secretary. I can't keep up with all this paperwork, and I've got cars piling up waiting to be fixed." Mark glanced at Emily, a knowing look in his eyes. Seriously? You really want to hire a secretary? Absolutely, Wilson grumbled, gesturing to the chaos around him. Look at this mess. Plus I gotta answer phones, deal with customers at the counter. Mark smirked, a plan forming. I know someone who used to be a secretary. Might be looking for a better job. Hell yes, Wilson said without hesitation. Mark gently took Emily's arm, guiding her forward. Boss, let me introduce you to my new friend. This is Emily Sims. She used to be a secretary. Wilson studied her for a moment, his eyes assessing. Think you can handle all this, young lady? Emily nodded confidently. Absolutely. I can type 50 words a minute, filing, shorthand, handle customers. I can even work the cash register. Wilson thought for a moment, then asked, You working right now? Yes, I'm a waitress, Emily admitted, but I don't make much. Here's what I'll do, Wilson said, his gruff voice softening slightly. Give your current boss 2 weeks' notice, then come work for me. Since you're Mark's friend, I'll start you at $600 a week. How does that sound? $600? Emily's eyes widened. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, she said, a beaming smile lighting up her face. You know anything about cars? He asked, turning back to Mark. Not as much as you, she replied. But my dad taught me quite a bit. Even better, Wilson said, pleased. He turned to Mark, rummaging around on his desk. Oh, I got something for you, too. He handed Mark a thick envelope. Consider it a welcome home bonus. Mark opened it, his eyes widening. A check for $340. He shook Wilson's hand, gratitude flooding him. Thanks, boss. This really means a lot. You've earned it, Wilson replied, clapping him on the shoulder. Now go take care of that cheating wife of yours. Come back to work when you're ready. We will, boss, Mark said. Wilson waved them off. All right, you two, get going. As they walked out, Emily looked at Mark in disbelief. $600 a week? I've never made that much before. Thank you again, Mark. Don't mention it, Mark said, a smile spreading across his face. That's almost double what I make as a sergeant in the Corps. No way, Emily said, incredulous. Yep, Mark confirmed. You really know about cars? Yeah, Emily replied. We didn't have much money, so my dad taught me how to fix things. Learned how to tune up a car, change belts and tires, even do oil changes. Mark chuckled. Don't let Wilson hear that. He'll have you working on cars all the time. Emily laughed. I don't mind getting a little grease on my hands. Just grab what you need for the truck, and I'll show you how it's done, Mark said, his eyes sparkling. Wow, Emily breathed, her cheeks flushing slightly. I think I'm falling for you. Emily giggled, stepping closer and kissing him quickly on the cheek. Me too, she admitted softly. Their next stop was Mark's bank in Midtown, where he deposited the check, automatically setting aside 10% for savings, a habit ingrained from years of military discipline. He withdrew $100 for spending money, ordered new checks, this time without Sarah's name on them. Afterward, they hit an auto parts store in the Bronx, picking up everything Mark needed for the truck. Grabbing a quick burger at a diner, they headed back to Mark's place in Brooklyn. As they pulled up, Mark realized how much more like home the apartment felt with Emily around. He parked the truck in the garage, starting to organize tools while Emily went inside to change. When she returned, she was in old jeans and a worn t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, ready to get to work. "So," she asked expectantly, "where do we start?" Emily grabbed the spark plugs and wires. "I'll handle these. You can take care of the oil change." "Sounds good," Mark replied. By the time he finished the oil change, Emily had replaced the spark plugs, wires, rotor, and distributor cap, her movement surprisingly efficient. Mark inspected her work, impressed. Lowering the truck, he climbed inside, turned the key. The engine roared to life, purring smoothly, exactly as he'd hoped. Revving it slightly, Mark listened carefully for any issues, satisfied. He shut off the truck, turning to Emily, grease smeared across her hands and face. She looked more beautiful to him than Sarah ever had. "So?" she asked again, her eyes bright. Mark cupped her face with his greasy hands, ignoring the grime, and kissed her deeply. "I'm definitely in love," he murmured against her lips. She grinned, her smile wide and genuine. "You're hired." Unconcerned about the extra grease now on her face, she laughed as Mark handed her a roll of hand cleaner. He recalled how he had once wished Sarah would enjoy moments like this, working together, getting their hands dirty, but she had always found his work, his life, too messy. After cleaning up, Emily cooked dinner, a simple but delicious pasta dish. They spent the evening watching TV, curled up on the couch in peaceful comfort. For the first time in a long while, Mark felt truly at ease. So much so that he managed to get through the night without Sarah's face haunting his dreams. The following days were a whirlwind. Mark picked up his dress blues, spending hours meticulously removing loose threads, polishing his brass, shoes, and hat until they gleamed. Emily gave her 2 weeks' notice at the deli, only to be told her employment was ending immediately. "Don't bother coming back," her manager had snapped, handing her a meager final paycheck. During those days leading up to the court hearing, Mark and Emily grew even closer, their connection deepening with each shared moment. They decided to hold off on taking their relationship further, waiting until Mark's divorce was finalized, a mutual decision born of respect and caution. It was challenging for Mark. It had been a long time since he'd been with a woman, a long time since he'd felt this spark, this genuine pull. He was falling, head over heels, for Emily, and it seemed she felt the same way. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived, a crisp fall Friday in New York. Mark showered, shaved, and dressed in his uniform, the crisp fabric feeling strangely comforting. After a quiet breakfast, he stepped into the living room, Emily waiting for him, dressed in a simple but lovely printed dress. "Wow," she breathed, admiring him in his dress blues, the medals gleaming on his chest. "You look fantastic, Mark." Mark smiled, a genuine smile reaching his eyes. "Thanks, but I feel like a Christmas tree," he joked, glancing at the rows of ribbons and medals. "You look amazing, too." At the courthouse in downtown Manhattan, they were greeted by 14 Marines from Mark's old unit, a silent, formidable presence. Lieutenant Colonel Johnson and Sergeant Major Roberts led the group. After brief introductions, They all entered the courtroom, the Marines filling 2 rows, their presence radiating strength and unwavering support. Mark approached the table where Michael was already waiting, joined by Mark's parents, their faces etched with concern but also quiet determination. Across the room, Sarah and Eric sat at the opposite table, a stark contrast in their tailored suits and smug expressions. Sarah's eyes widened when she saw Mark, a flicker of something, regret, crossing her face. He looked imposing in his uniform, the scars on his face, the empty space where his ear used to be, a stark reminder of what she had thrown away. Eric, however, just smirked, casually rubbing Sarah's pregnant belly, a possessive gesture, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. Sarah still hadn't noticed Emily, standing quietly beside Mark. The judge entered. The bailiff instructed everyone to stand. Once seated, the judge, a stern-faced man with a no-nonsense demeanor, turned his attention to the Marines. "Gentlemen," he addressed them, his voice booming in the hushed courtroom, "what brings you here today?" Lieutenant Colonel Johnson stood, his posture ramrod straight, his voice resonant and clear. "Your Honor," he stated, "my Marines and I are here to show support for Sergeant Harding, and, if necessary, to speak on his character." The judge nodded, a hint of respect in his eyes. "Thank you, Colonel. I don't believe that will be necessary, but I appreciate the support." The Marines remained silent throughout the hearing, their eyes fixed on Sarah and Eric, their stern glares speaking volumes. The proceedings unfolded exactly as Michael had predicted. The judge questioned both parties about their marriage, financial responsibilities, and the grounds for Mark's divorce. Sarah, her face pale and drawn, admitted to abandoning the marital home, neglecting utility payments, and becoming pregnant by Swanson. Swanson, in turn, with a breathtaking lack of self-awareness, attempted to convince the judge to order Mark to pay child support for the baby. The judge raised a skeptical eyebrow, his gaze piercing. "You really expect me to make Mr. Harding pay child support for a child you fathered, Mr. Swanson?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Are you serious, or just not thinking clearly?" Throughout the hearing, the judge systematically dismissed every motion and request made by Swanson, his patience wearing thin with each ridiculous argument. In the end, the ruling was a complete victory for Mark. He was granted full ownership of the house in Queens, a permanent restraining order against Sarah and Swanson, and was not required to make any child support payments. Sarah was also ordered to return half of the money she had taken from their joint account and revert to her maiden name. She wasn't required to return her wedding rings, as she had already discarded them months ago, a petty act of defiance. Swanson, red-faced and sputtering, tried to protest, but the judge silenced him with a sharp bang of his gavel. "Mr. Swanson," the judge said, pointing at him with the gavel, his voice like steel, "I am ordering an investigation into your involvement in this case. At the very least, there is a significant conflict of interest, given your professional relationship with Mrs. Harding. Additionally," he continued, his voice rising slightly, "I am aware that the district attorney is looking into other potential illegal activities, including conspiracy. I also understand you are facing a lawsuit for alienation of affection. Your actions and conduct today will be taken into consideration in that matter." With that, the judge struck his gavel against the desk, the sound echoing through the courtroom, sealing his decision. Mr. Harding's divorce petition is granted. Swanson immediately jumped up in a rage, charging towards Mark, his face contorted with fury. But the bailiff, a burly man in uniform, intercepted him, blocking his path. "You scum sucker!" Swanson shouted, his voice hoarse, spitting venom. "I'm going to kick your ass. I'll keep messing with your ex and anyone else you get involved with. I'll ruin you." Mark remained calm, his voice even, unwavering. "I don't think so." Swanson glanced at Mark, then at the rows of Marines filling the courtroom. Their eyes locked on him and Sarah with open hostility. Sarah lowered her head in shame, tears welling in her eyes. From the back of the courtroom, Lee Marquez, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, stepped forward, his face grim. "You're fired, Swanson," Lee stated firmly, his voice cutting through the tension. "Effective immediately. I'm also filing a complaint with the state bar. Pack up your things and leave my office by the end of the day." Swanson muttered curses under his breath, his bravado evaporating as he stormed out of the courtroom, defeated. Lee turned briefly to Sarah, his expression softening slightly. "You still have a job, Cassandra," he said, using her maiden name, a subtle but pointed correction. "At least until after the baby is born and you've had some time to recover. We'll reassess your performance then." He then turned back to Mark, offering his hand, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "Sergeant Harding," Lee said, shaking Mark's hand firmly. "Thank you for your service. On behalf of the partnership and the board of directors, I sincerely apologize for what you've been put through." He then addressed Michael, a professional tone returning to his voice. "Given the circumstances and considering Mr. Harding's service to our country, we see no need for further hearings. The board accepts your initial offer. Please schedule an appointment with me next week to finalize everything." Michael nodded, shaking Lee's hand. "Thanks, Lee. I'll call on Monday." Lee smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Great. Maybe now I can finally win back some of my money on the golf course." With that, he left the courtroom, the tension in the air dissipating. Emily walked over to Mark, her eyes shining with relief and pride. She hugged him tightly, and as he embraced her, he caught Sarah watching him through tear-filled eyes. "Mark," Sarah said softly, her voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you." "Well, you did," he replied, his voice somber but without anger. "I just need to know one thing. Why?" Sarah shrugged, a gesture of helpless confusion. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice cracking. "You were gone. Eric was around. Maybe. Maybe I started thinking about money, about being tired of struggling. One thing led to another and, well, you know the rest." Mark studied her carefully, trying to decipher the truth in her words. "What were you two talking about earlier?" he asked, his voice low. Sarah hesitated, her gaze shifting to the floor. "Eric thought... He thought you'd be okay with raising my child while I stayed with him," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "At first, I hated the idea, but over time, I started to believe it could work. She sighed again, the weight of her choices settling heavily on her shoulders. I'm sorry. Mark shook his head, a wave of sadness washing over him. I see. Sarah's gaze shifted to Emily, standing protectively beside Mark, her expression hardening, a flicker of resentment in her eyes. You didn't waste any time replacing me, she said bitterly, her voice laced with accusation. Emily stepped forward, placing herself firmly in front of Mark, her eyes meeting Sarah's, unwavering and strong. I'm not here to replace you, Sarah, she replied, her voice clear and steady. I'm here to heal a good man's heart, the heart you broke. And I plan to spend the rest of my life doing just that. Sarah lowered her eyes, her confidence faltering in the face of Emily's quiet strength. I guess I deserve that, she admitted softly. Then, looking back at Mark, her voice hesitant, she asked, Do you think we could ever be friends again? Mark sighed, his expression somber. I don't know, Sarah, he said honestly. You hurt me deeply. If it weren't for Emily and my family, I might not even be here right now. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, finally genuine tears of remorse. I didn't know, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. She turned, wiping her cheeks, and walked out of the courtroom alone, without another word. Mark exhaled, the tension finally draining from his body. He turned to Michael, shaking his hand firmly. By now, the Marines and his parents had gathered around, their faces beaming with relief and pride. Thanks for everything, Michael, Mark said, his voice filled with gratitude. I really owe you. Michael waved him off with a grin. Hey, that's what friends and family are for, right? He chuckled, clapping Mark on the back. Besides, he added, his eyes twinkling, I've always wanted to see that jerk get put in his place. Mark smirked, a genuine smile spreading across his face. Michael clapped him on the back again. I'll catch up with you next week after I talk to Lee. You've got a big payday coming. Now go out and celebrate. You've earned it. After shaking hands with each of the Marines, exchanging words of gratitude and camaraderie, Michael left, heading back to his office. Good job, Sergeant Harding, Colonel Johnson said, shaking Mark's hand firmly, a rare smile gracing his lips. The other Marines followed suit, offering their congratulations, pats on the back, and words of support before departing, their mission accomplished. Mark's parents then stepped forward, embracing him warmly, their relief palpable. We're so proud of you, son, his mother said, her voice thick with emotion. Then, turning to Emily, her smile widening, she asked, And who is this lovely young lady? Mark, beaming with pride, introduced Emily. His parents welcomed her with open arms, hugging her as if she were already part of the family. You need to bring her over for dinner sometime, Mark, his mother insisted, her eyes twinkling with approval. Mark grinned. I plan to, many times. In the months that followed, life began to settle into a new, peaceful rhythm. Sarah tragically suffered a miscarriage and was later informed that she wouldn't be able to have children again. The law firm, surprisingly, kept her on staff, but placed her under a strict contract prohibiting relationships with other employees. She remained with the firm for 20 years, staying single, a solitary figure in the bustling city. Occasionally, she caught glimpses of Mark and Emily's growing family from a distance, a bittersweet reminder of what she had lost. Tragically, Sarah passed away in a car accident years later. Mark, Emily, and his parents attended her funeral, offering their silent respects, a final closure to a painful chapter. As for Eric Swanson, his life spiraled into ruin. He lost most of his wealth battling legal troubles, defeated in court by Mark, and lost every appeal to the state bar, though the district attorney never pressed charges due to a lack of concrete evidence. Swanson's reputation was irreparably destroyed. One night after leaving a bar in the financial district, he was attacked by masked men in a dark alley and brutally beaten, left for dead. A crude sign scrawled on cardboard hung around his neck when he was found the next morning. A few weeks later, he was discovered hanged in his luxury apartment overlooking Central Park, a grim end to a life built on ambition and greed. Mark proposed to Emily on the very day his divorce was finalized, a small, intimate proposal in their Brooklyn apartment, overlooking the city lights. They married the following spring in a traditional Marine Corps ceremony at a chapel on Long Island, surrounded by family and friends, a celebration of love and resilience. They continued working for Mr. Wilson at the garage in Queens, building a life together, a partnership forged in hardship and strengthened by unwavering love. When Mr. Wilson passed away in 1980, he left the auto shop to Mark, a testament to his trust and respect. Mark remained in the Marine Corps Reserves, eventually retiring as a master gunnery sergeant in 1992, a year after Desert Storm, his service complete, his duty done. Though memories of the desert, of loss and conflict, still surfaced in his dreams, they no longer held the same power, the same crushing weight. Over time, he learned to manage them, to find peace in the quiet moments with Emily, in the everyday rhythms of their life together. Mark and Emily ran the auto shop side by side, a team in every sense of the word, until they retired in 2008, passing the business down to their two sons, a legacy of hard work and integrity. A decade later, while strolling through Greenwich Village hand in hand, the city sounds a familiar hum around them. Mark stopped in his tracks, staring into the window of a tattoo shop. His eyes were drawn to a drawing of a rose tattoo, the very one he had once considered getting in Vietnam, a lifetime ago. A slow smile spread across his face as he turned to Emily, his eyes filled with love and a lifetime of shared moments. "I think," he said, his voice soft, "I think I'm finally going to do it." She raised a curious brow, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Do what?" Mark took her hand, squeezing it gently, his gaze unwavering. "I want your name tattooed over my heart, where it belongs." He looked at her, his heart laid bare. "You promised to heal my heart all those years ago, Emily, and you did. Now," his voice was thick with emotion, "I want everyone to know how much I love you." Emily's eyes shimmered with tears, her own heart overflowing. "You don't need to do that," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Mark chuckled, a warm, familiar sound. "Oh, yes," he insisted, his voice firm but gentle. "Yes, I do. I owe you everything." Knowing there was no changing his mind, Emily sat beside him, her hand in his, as the tattoo artist prepped his tools, the buzzing of the machine a low hum in the small shop. "You sure you want to do this, Grandpa?" the young artist joked, a playful grin on his face. Mark removed his shirt, revealing the map of scars etched across his chest, the stories of time and battle written on his skin. He grinned, a lifetime of love and resilience in that smile. "Absolutely." The artist nodded, his expression turning serious, respectful. "This is going to hurt." Emily wiped away a tear, her smile radiant, as she watched the needle begin its work, the ink taking shape, her name, Emily, forever etched over Mark's heart, right where it had always belonged.